We're kicking into the Kamala. There's three different ways to say her name. I forget which way it was, but they're going to probably tell us in one of these clips, I'm sure, the proper way to say Kamala's name. Let's go to the clip.
The latest bizarre turn of events in the 2024 presidential election cycle, and I guess at this point there's a new one every day, some expected, some unexpected, is the Democrats' new talking point is to call Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and Republicans in general weird. We're the weirdos, they say.
Some of what he and his running mate are saying, well, it's just plain weird.
These guys are just weird. That's where they are.
As weird and creepy as J.D. Vance.
Super weird idea from J.D. Vance.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's quite weird. They're just plain weird.
Just plain weird.
Just plain weird.
That stuff is weird. They come across weird, and then they start being weird. Yeah, they're weird.
Being a really weird.
He's such a weirdo.
Donald Trump and his weirdo running mate, they're weird. Deeply and profoundly weird.
They are weird.
These Republicans just being weird, it's just weird. It's really weird.
Republican weirdness goes even deeper.
He said a lot of things that are weird, a weird style that he brings.
Pete Buttigieg calling someone else weird. This from the same administration that appointed Rachel Levine to be the Assistant Secretary of Health. The same administration that hired Sam Brinton, the gender non-binary luggage kleptomaniac whose hobby was to travel around the country and steal people's luggage from the luggage claims at airports so that he could find more women's clothes to wear. This is all connected to a disinformation smear campaign being waged against J.D. Vance that involves spreading around fake screenshots claiming to be from his best-selling memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, claiming that he wrote that he did you know what with his couch in a very bizarre way. I'm not even going to get into the details, but some Democrats know that it's a hoax, so they're claiming that it's a meme, while others continue to spread it, actually thinking that J.D. Vance wrote about this in his memoir because they know how dumb the average Democrat is and their base. So the Associated Press, surprisingly at first, did the right thing. They published a fact check about the hoax, only to then quickly delete their fact check, dumping it down the memory hole because the liberals got so upset about it. And when the AP fact checks something, they're tied in with Facebook's automatic fact checking system. And so when people post that fake news, then it automatically gets flagged. So that then stopped the spread or slowed the spread of the fake news. So the Associated Press literally deleted a fact check so that the fake news could continue to spread far and wide. Page unavailable. This story did not go through our standard editing process and has been removed. Again, not that the fact check was wrong. It's because the fact check was correct. And they deemed the story not worthy of being fact checked. It's just a silly joke. It's just an internet rumor. It's just a meme. And so it doesn't warrant a fact check from the Associated Press, they said. This is the kind of fake news that the fact checkers actually should be fact checking, especially when the perpetuators of this hoax cited page numbers of the alleged excerpt. And so the Associated Press did their due diligence. They searched the book for the terms couch and sofa and other terms, never found anything, and consulted with other people who had read the book. And then they concluded, of course, that there is no such reference in the book whatsoever. What is weird, however, is yesterday there were two online Zoom conferences, one for white women for Kamala, the other white dudes for Kamala, and here's just a sample of that weirdness.
Hi, everybody. I am so honored to speak today. I am shaking to just be among such incredible company. We are here because, as if you were here earlier, you've heard BIPOC women have tapped us in as white women to step up, listen, and get involved this election season.
BIPOC, by the way, if you're not up to speed with your latest culture Marxist terminology, means Black, Indigenous, and people of color. It's a buzzword meaning all non-white people, essentially.
We are here because, as if you were here earlier, you've heard BIPOC women have tapped us in as white women to step up, listen, and get involved this election season.
To listen, white women need you to sit down and listen to the expert BIPOCs. Tell them what they need to be doing.
So tonight, I'm going to share some do's and don'ts for getting involved in politics online and navigating the toxicity that comes with it. And spoiler alert, as much as the toxicity can come from the outside, it can come from us too.
I think it's safe to say she is talking about white privilege, right? Wait for it.
As white women, we need to use our privilege to make positive changes. If you find yourself talking over or speaking for BIPOC individuals, or God forbid, correcting them, just take a beat. And instead, we can put our listening ears on.
So never correct a non-white person when they make a mistake, when they're spewing nonsense, or they're spreading fake news. But buckle up, because the white dudes for Kamala's Zoom conference is even more cringe.
You've got some big Democratic names who are set to be on this Zoom call. You have David Hogg, who is with us right now. You have Roy Cooper, the former governor of North Carolina. You have Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Congressman Adam Schiff. Lots of big names.
Big stars. They're all heroes. Here's the organizer, and yes, he is even weirder than you could possibly imagine.
And that happens at the same time as the myths around America that we grew up with, that we as men are expected to be protectors and providers, are going out into an economy that doesn't really allow for that, especially for working class folks.
This clown does not qualify as a dude, and I guarantee you that he hasn't eaten protein in 15 years. It is so weak that he couldn't even carry a half a gallon of milk from the refrigerator to the breakfast table.
And sort of like compounding on that, masculinity as a trope has been co-opted by the MAGA right into something that feeds into and exacerbates the loneliness epidemic, as well as the mental health crisis that many face that end up leading to really destructive behaviors.
So because conservative men, or the MAGA right as he calls us, are normal and we're not a bunch of sissies and soy boys and we're traditionalists, we either work hard jobs that keep us fit and strong, or we go to the gym and eat a lot of protein and maintain the traditional roles that society has had ingrained in our DNA since the liberal pandemic hit. Now he feels bad about himself. And he, and millions of others, obviously, are having a mental health crisis, and it's our fault just for existing.
We aren't the only ones that are hurt by these things. Black and brown people, LGBTQIA plus people, especially trans women and indigenous people, and, all sorts of other folks in our society who've been historically and often still today are marginalized and being hurt.
Marginalized. They're actually idolized. They're put on pedestals every day, everywhere by the liberal media industrial complex. Let's check out some of these big names they had on the Zoom call, like Eric Fartswell. Tell us, sissy boy, how come you're jealous of Republicans?
Recently, I walked in a parade in my hometown of Dublin, California, and we always pass out rubber duckies in every parade. It was the first parade that I asked my children to join me. And so I had my 7-year-old and my 5-year-old. They're working the parade. They're passing out duckies. And my 7-year-old Nelson walks up to a little girl to give her a little rubber ducky with the campaign logo on it. And as she hands the girl the ducky, this older guy standing behind her, who I think is probably her dad, looks at my son and he says, "We're for Trump." And my son looks at me and then he looks back at the guy and he said, "Who's Trump?"
Imagine being offended when you're using your small children to propagandize others with the liberal agenda, and then one of the other parents sees what's happening and has had enough and politely says they support Trump. They couldn't possibly find someone with lower testosterone than Eric Swalwell to join the Zoom call, could they? Oh, wait, what's this?
He's also the internet's favorite candidate for VP. One of the brightest stars in the Democratic Party. We've got Pete Buttigieg with us.
Hey, thanks so much. I'm really excited to be with you all and to address this convening of dudes.
The internet's favorite candidate, he said, for Kamala's VP, Pete Buttigieg. We should hope and pray that that is her choice, but sadly, the Democrat Party isn't that dumb. And while they got their white dudes for Kamala, we got this guy.
You want to know why I'm here to support President Trump? Because they done did black men like this for decades. Make up charges and put them, so I know Trump is innocent. I support Trump against this corrupt, two-tiered justice system. That's why I'm here to show my support as a black man for Trump. And I'm wearing my shirt, Niggas for Trump 2024, and I mean that.
We salute you, sir. And speaking of great political shirts, my distributor probably wouldn't go for that one. You can get the new Fight for Trump shirt from my online store at markdice.com or click the link in the description below.
Vice President-elect Kamala Harris celebrated the historic moment with her family, stepkids Cole and Ella, and her niece Mina.
Good evening.
She wore a white Carolina Herrera pantsuit with a pussy bow. The Vice President-elect's husband, Doug Emhoff, is also making history as America's first second gentleman.
Here he is, a high-powered attorney who is setting aside his career for the ambitions of his wife.
The 56-year-old entertainment lawyer is very protective. When a protester grabbed the mic from his wife at a campaign event last year, he leapt on stage to help subdue him. Look at him take back that mic. Long before she met Doug Emhoff, she dated some prominent men, including in 2001, former talk show host Montel Williams. Back then, he was the famous one and had to introduce her to the paparazzi. Now, the whole world knows who she is.
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform. That is why we created initiatives that were about re-entering former offenders and getting them counseling.
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you were in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who were on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology. Our Democratic Party, unfortunately, is not the party that is of, by, and for the people. It is a party that has been and continues to be influenced by the foreign policy establishment in Washington, represented by Hillary Clinton and others' foreign policy, by the military-industrial complex, and other greedy corporate interests.
Senator Harris, any response?
Oh, sure. I think that it's unfortunate that we have someone on the stage who is attempting to be the Democratic nominee for President of the United States, who during the Obama administration spent 4 years full-time on Fox News criticizing President Obama.
That's
who
ridiculous,
has spent full-time, who has spent full-time criticizing people on this stage as affiliated with the Democratic Party. When Donald Trump was elected, not even sworn in, buddied up to Steve Bannon to get a meeting with Donald Trump in the Trump Tower, fails to call a war criminal by what he is as a war criminal, and then spends full time during the course of this campaign, again, criticizing the Democratic Party. What we need on the stage in November is someone who has the ability to win. And by that, we need someone on that stage who has the ability to go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump, and someone who has the ability to rebuild the Obama coalition and bring the party and the nation together. I believe I am that candidate.
Thank you, Senator. Congresswoman Gabbard, I'll give you a chance to respond.
What Senator Harris is doing is unfortunately continuing to traffic in lies and smears and innuendos because she cannot challenge the substance of the argument that I'm making, the leadership and the change that I'm seeking to bring in our foreign policy, which only makes me guess that she will, as president, continue the status quo, continue the Bush, Clinton, Trump foreign policy of regime change wars, which is deeply destructive. I want to
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. So apparently Donald Trump blew it. He went into the lion's den at the NABJ, only to get totally humiliated and embarrassed. You know, that's what the leftoids were telling us yesterday on X. How will Trump's image survive this? Oh no, a couple left-wing journalists were mean to him during a public event. It's over for the Trump crowd. They want you to accept that narrative. You notice what's going on, right? They're taking little things like J.D. Vance said one thing about cat ladies and trying to blow it out of proportion. They're trying to make it seem as if it's something that's so horrible you can't possibly associate yourself with it. And conservatives are running scared, totally allowing the Democrats to dictate the conversation. I don't know about you guys, but I won't feed into any of it. Trump showing at the NABJ wasn't a bad look for him. It was the same look that we saw with that CNN town hall that Caitlin Collins hosted, essentially par for the course. We gotta have a conversation about this because some of the stuff I'm seeing online is frankly just bothering me. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so I'm paying attention to all the segments, and I keep seeing nonsense like this.
Donald Trump blew it, and the happiest person in the country tonight is Kamala Harris. Because she's sitting there cackling, look at this, look at this, look at Trump. He's just alienated millions of black voters who aren't going to really get what happened there. The broadside against Kamala Harris was that she's a phony, that she used one bit of ethnicity to do this, one bit to do that. But Trump didn't articulate it.
Donald Trump blew it. It was the worst thing ever. Kamala Harris is so happy. It's such a bad thing. Donald Trump just alienated millions of black voters. What is this idiotic nonsense that I'm listening to? And look, excuse me if you're a Bill O'Reilly fan, but this guy obviously has no idea what he's freaking talking about. First of all, alienating millions of black voters. Is that really his political analysis? As if the GOP, as if Donald Trump has millions of black voters to alienate? Yeah, that's not the way it works. 90% of black voters are already voting for Democrats. Oh, the journalist attacked Donald Trump as a racist. It's totally over for him. Who is coming up with these takes? The freaking DCCC? Why would any conservative in their right mind have this kind of reaction? You know, there's really not much to lose and a whole lot to gain if you think about it. You know, Trump showing up at this event, in my view at least, there was a whole lot to gain and not much to lose. And the idea that Trump was going to show up there and be treated with kid gloves and be allowed to woo the audience and win over the black vote, well, obviously that was never going to happen. So there's only one other option. Stand your ground and plant a couple seeds. And that's exactly what Trump did. Trump went on that stage and planted some seeds of doubt relating to Kamala Harris's cultural authenticity. And that right there might actually have an impact. I'm seeing a whole lot of people on X questioning whether Kamala Harris is actually authentic in her identity. It's already started. The topic of conversation isn't Trump. You know, people aren't really talking about Trump's supposed failure. They're talking about what he said. I'm literally seeing hundreds of black Americans now questioning Kamala Harris's identity on X. The reaction hasn't been what the Democrats are trying to force here.
She's a DEI high. She was high because she was a woman and because she was a woman of color. And she started calling herself black. Then this interviewer gonna tell me, well, she always called herself black. You telling her because Kamala Harris called herself whatever she need to call herself to get whatever vote she need to get. Kamala Harris has been an enemy woman when she was running up there in California. She became a black woman when she was running for VP and she needed the black vote. I'm a black woman and I'm not voting for either. I'm not voting for Kamala Harris and I'm not voting for the Democratic Party, and it is what the is.
You know, sure, you have Trump haters who already hate him. They watched the Donald walk into the lion's den and obviously they scratched him up a little bit, and those people are going to cheer it on. Oh, Trump's getting destroyed. But you got other people who are looking at the nuance. You know, they're thinking to themselves, maybe Kamala Harris is really playing us. I mean, now all of a sudden, as people are questioning Kamala Harris's authenticity, all the clips are playing nonstop all over X.
What were you listening to when you was high? What was on? What song was
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, definitely Snoop. Tupac.
California's Kamala Harris is the first Indian American U.S.
Pause it for a
senator.
second.
And California.
Scott, could you look up when Tupac was publishing albums?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's not like she was putting people in prison for smoking pot while she's in government listening to Tupac smoking pot. She also kept people as slaves because people who were supposed to be released from prison were forced to work fighting fires for like $1 a day, risking their lives because she could have slaves. And I'm pretty sure her family owned slaves in the history of Kamala Harris. I'm trying to say it right. So these are very inconvenient truths. Go ahead and let it play so we can finish the clip. But then I need to make some points on this slavery bit that she's obviously involved in.
Yeah, all eyes on me, 1996. Sorry.
California's Kamala Harris is the first Indian American U.S. senator.
And California's Attorney General Kamala Harris has scripted history as she won the U.S. Senate seat from the state, becoming the first Indian American to achieve this feat.
And certainly you could become the first Indian senator in U.S. history, which would be quite an accomplishment.
Not good. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has been talking a big game about securing our border, but he does not walk the walk. Or as my friend Quavo would say, he does not walk it like he talks it. I said to the congressman, I didn't know he could preach like that. Yeah, girl, I'm out here in these streets, and let me tell you, as they say, they're not like us.
So what we're going to cook today is an Indian recipe.
Yes.
Because you are Indian.
Yes.
So we're both Indian,
Yes.
but actually we're both South Indian.
Yeah. I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman.
Kamala Harris, famously touted as an American Indian, here's a segment from CNN.
And her mother, Shamla Gopalan, was also the biggest influence in Kamala Harris's life. In her book, Harris says, "There is no title or honor on earth I'll treasure more than to say I am Shamla Gopalan Harris's daughter." Harris's visits to India with her mother kept her connected to her roots. There's no doubt that the primary source of learning for Senator Harris was from her mother's experiences and the conversations that she had with her maternal grandfather when she visited India, which was very often.
Is now essentially trying to market herself as a foundational black American who's down with the culture. All of a sudden, Quavo is talking about Kamala Harris being in the streets.
And you can't understand the struggles of gun violence if you're not in the field or in the heart of it. So one thing I learned about working with Vice President Harris is she always stand on business.
Megan Thee Stallion is twerking at Kamala Harris's rally. And I think it's causing a lot of people to take a step back and question, am I being played here? Is this authentic? Or is this all a show to pull me in to vote?
I keep seeing the Megan Thee Stallion TikToks from that concert, and I am still scratching my head. Are we living in the Twilight Zone or what? Having Megan Thee Stallion twerk is not going to fix our economy, and it's not going to stop illegal immigrants from flooding this country. But now Kamala is promising to fix the border that she has never even visited. She's in the White House right now. So if she wanted to do something about the border, she could. She's in a position to do so. I don't know if y'all are taking suggestions, but I have one. Why don't y'all go down to the border, put a concert on down there, maybe then you can raise enough money to finish rebuilding the wall. This is literally the worst border crisis in American history. Last thing I want to say is this. Please do not allow yourself to be influenced by gender, skin color, party, or ideology. Pick the candidate that you believe will move you forward and put your country back on track. Because from my vantage point, it is a complete and utter shit show.
That seems to be the conversation that's happening here. That seems to be the little
I'd vote for her before I voted for Kamala. That lady sounded smart. That sounded like some logical, reasonable rhetoric I could get behind. I'd vote for her. I don't think they'd let her be president.
No, and that's the thing. It's just shocking how every single time it's like the choices were offered are always the worst out of all of them. Like it just tells you it's all ass backwards.
It's an election, but really it's a selection. That's why when I learned that stuff, it's like the linkage of your vote doesn't connect to the people in power. What are you doing?
Exactly.
You're failing to be assertive. That's what's going on.
True. And Kamala like got this presidential nomination. Nobody voted for her in any sort of primaries, and like nobody donated a penny to her like prior to her being nominated. Vote. And so it's like that tells you that right there is legitimately a selection. She was just selected and handed to you, folks. So enjoy.
But she earned it. We'll get to how she earned it in a minute, because I found out where she was during that time when she was listening to Tupac smoking weed. All right, first we got to go here. This pro-slavery thing was a thing. It was of the British Empire, by the way, who is famous. Like the British, they always say, "Oh, well, Britain abolished slavery before America." Oh, really? Fascinating. Tell me that story. Well, they said no more slavery in England. Okay, is that all the territory that they owned? Oh, no, they were the world dominating empire, and they kept slavery everywhere else except like where they were doing, where they kept the families, basically, of the ruling people. They said no more slavery there. William Wilberforce was that famous abolitionist. A lot of interesting things were going on in the mid 1800s, but by the time you get to pre-Civil War, wrong. Here we go. You got this guy named August Belmont. You've got this group, the B'nai B'rith, Young Israel. But let's go to August Belmont because it goes back to the same place anyway. August Belmont is the American representative of the Rothschild International banking family. Okay. They controlled the American Democratic Party. They profited greatly off of Confederate slavery. They conspired with Britain to support the Confederacy during the Civil War in America. Now, August Belmont also had a son called August Belmont. He also was instrumental in the Democratic Party of the United States. The pro-slavery party was funded by an international banking cartel. The Confederates were also aided and abetted by Britain. And little known fact, if the Tsar of Russia didn't put his fleet off of the coast of Charleston and San Francisco, if memory serves, the British were going to come in on the side of the Confederacy and beat Lincoln and the Union. And so that's an interesting part of history where Russia was a very strong ally to our independence. And you see that the people who took us over, which might be the Anglo-American establishment faction, they have a big grudge still being held against Russia, even after they ran the Soviet communist project over there for a long time. But let's get back to this slavery thing, because, it does go someplace. So if we go back now to this Democratic Party, LBJ is part of that party. You got a lot of corruption over the years associated with that party. But along in 1854, the first abolitionist party, the Republican Party, comes about. And then shortly after that, we have this American Civil War, and we go through a lot of other history that comes after that. So this idea of slavery is lingering because Kamala was in a position of power which she abused, which is what Tulsi was just saying there. And that looks like this. Over here, we can clearly see in 1990, she's in the district attorney's office. So she's working, prosecuting people. In 94, she's working downtown on Willie Brown. Okay. And then by 98, she's San Francisco district attorney. So she's listening to Tupac, smoking weed, putting people in prison of her own color. Especially, that's notable. It's not like she's a white person doing this to black people. She's an Indian, African, Jamaican. We'll get into that. Who's doing this to people of color, to the BIPOC community, possibly. We'll have to check into all those definitions. All right, so this is Kamala Harris. Now, interestingly enough, that one of those clips was talking about how proud she is to be her mother's daughter. But what's her father up to? Anyone? Oh, I also wanted to. So she's born in 1964. She graduates and gets her Juris Doctorate, her law degree. And then she is working for Willie Brown. And so in that Tupac era, that's covered in these paragraphs here, she's all up in the legal system, prosecuting people for what she does herself. That's the hallmark of what they call a hypocrite. But over here is an interesting passage because Donald J. Harris, her father, is all Anglo-American establishment up. Now,
wait, her father is Donald J. too? Oh my God.
Okay. Is a Jamaican-American economist and professor emeritus at Stanford, known for applying post-Keynesian ideas. Interesting. Does he have anything to do with What's that school? That the Rothschilds have over there. It's tied to The Economist. Maybe we'll find it here. Maybe it's in his maybe it's in here. He's got an Order of Merit, early life, Berkeley, Bachelor of Arts, University of London. Oh, he does time in London. That's good for Anglo-American establishment type folks. Let's see what else. He's got a career going, Cambridge University, right? So this is Yale University. This is very. Did anyone figure out what the Hebrew says in the Yale East India Company logo yet? We might have to get to that at some point because we're going to have to talk about Yale Law School and how Christopher Wray, his father, and J.D. Vance are all graduates of the same alma mater. But we'll get to that because we got lots of stories tonight. All right, now check this out, dude. He became a Fulbright Scholar. Fulbright Scholar is an American Rhodes Scholar program. Fulbright was a Rhodes Scholar. He said, we should do the same thing for America. He created this Fulbright Scholars. So her dad is a Fulbright Scholar, which is fully still Anglo-American establishment. I mean, I could take you. Let's go to the history blueprint real quick. Let's type in Fulbright so you guys can have an understanding and not just like repeat stuff, right? Webster Tarpley is also a Fulbright Scholar. We should add him right now to the history blueprint. Let's just do this. Under Fulbright Scholars, we're going to do Donald J. Harris. We're going to drop him right in. And he's Fulbright Scholar. And I'm going to connect him to J. William Fulbright, who started that program, who is a Rhodes Scholar. So the British have a conquest to recolonize America from 1781 to present. In the 20th century, as part of that agenda, the British infiltration and creation, really, of the American intelligence community happened. Then you have a bunch of Rhodes Scholars to go around bringing about the eventual America merging back with the British Empire. And Fulbright was one of those. He created his own scholarship programs. Tucker Carlson might be a Fulbright Scholar. I'd have to like research that. It looks like it. Or he was influenced. Maybe he like mentored or something like that.
He's heir to the Fulbright fortune, I believe.
Whoa. Is that with the Swansons? Is that the Swanson family
type
thing? I think
so.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Here we go. J. William Fulbright, Swanson family. What do we get when we go back to Fulbright? List of the Rhodes Scholar. All right. We're back there. Oh, Phi Beta Kappa. Christopher Wray's dad was also Phi Beta Kappa. Will we find him over here? What's his name? Cecil Ray? Right here. Boom. So we're going to get into it because he's his kid is investigating the attempted assassination of Donald J. Trump. But anyway, all right. So we covered Kamala's father, but we've got to go back to this browser for a second because there was more to his story, if memory serves. All right. So he's got Fulbright Scholar we got to. And then I was looking to see if he worked. Oh, here it is. All right. Harris is said to work in the tradition of post-Keynesian economics under people like, look, Karl Marx, right? Schumpeter. So this is interesting. He's an economist. And I thought he did a stint at one of the other economics places in Britain. The name is slipping, which... the London School of Economics. Let me just do that real quick. Because even though he's a visiting professor at Yale... No. LSE? Let's just do LSE. No? All right. I thought he did time at LSE. I guess I got it mixed up with University of London. You know, that's why details matter, so that you can be accurate.
Everyone's doing some kind of self-help these days, and you can find a million self-help courses out there. Most other courses out there are hosting lectures. They're hosting videos. They're maybe even doing Q&As. And these are great starting points to encourage learning. But at Autonomy, we believe that hands-on practice is the best way to really lock in what we're learning. There's no better way to gain confidence and mastery than through action. After each lecture, we practice the concepts we've learned with other students, giving and receiving feedback in a non-judgmental environment. The result is mastery of concepts like entrepreneurship, ethical sales, and self-reliance in an environment that directly translates to the real world. Plus, you make connections with other like-minded individuals who are learning right alongside you, and you have a lifetime membership in the community. The Autonomy course with Richard Grove equips you with confidence, competence, and courage in a world filled with confusion and noise. You can learn more at getautonomy.info. We'll see you there.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come on.
We have to now get into, sadly,